I've always believed that bad news has a strange way of finding you, sometimes quietly, sometimes brutally, but never when you expect it. For me, it arrived on an ordinary Thursday morning, delivered not by a phone call, not by a text, but by Facebook. I was half awake, scrolling aimlessly, trying to convince myself to get out of bed, when a photo popped up on my feed. My brother, James, smiling ear to ear, wearing a tailored navy blue suit. His fiancée, well, I suppose she's his wife now, stood beside him in a sparkling white dress. The caption below the photo read, "Can't believe the big day is only 1 week away. So excited." At first, I thought it was some kind of joke. I refreshed the page. Convinced I had misread the caption, I clicked the picture, zooming in like the answer was hidden somewhere between the pixels. But no, there it was. A week, my brother's wedding, and I knew absolutely nothing about it. The shock hit me like a slap, sharp, unexpected, humiliating. I just sat there on my bed, staring at the photo, waiting for, I don't know, context, an explanation. Something to make it make sense. Because weddings, especially in our family, are big, loud, emotional, family-centered. And I was his only sibling. We didn't just share blood, we shared history, scars, secrets, childhood battles, and victories. So how the hell was I finding out like this? I jumped out of bed and immediately called him. No answer. Texted him. Nothing. A minute passed. Then 2. Then 10. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, my phone buzzed. It wasn't a voice message, or an apology, or even a damn explanation. It was a text, a single sentence that would replay in my head like a broken record for days. "My wife doesn't want you there." That was it. No greeting, no details, no attempt to soften the blow. Just a blunt, cold dismissal, delivered like a routine business update. My lungs tightened. I stared at the words until they blurred. I must have read that message 20 times before my brain even accepted it as real. His wife didn't want me there. His wife, someone I barely knew, someone I'd only met twice, someone for whom I had gone out of my way to be polite, respectful, encouraging, someone I had never argued with, never offended, never wronged. His wife didn't want me there. But why? That question ate at me instantly, infecting every corner of my chest with a slow, burning ache. I typed out a dozen responses, angry ones, confused ones, desperate ones, but deleted every attempt before pressing send. Nothing felt right. Nothing felt enough. Instead, I just sat there, the phone heavy in my hand, my heart heavier in my chest. It's funny how memories rush in during moments like that, uninvited, unfiltered, and painfully vivid. Suddenly, I wasn't sitting in my room anymore. I was 10 years old, shielding James from the older kids at the bus stop. I was 13, letting him copy my homework so he wouldn't fail math. I was 18, working 2 jobs to help mom keep the lights on while he figured out his life. I was 26, giving him $5,000 to fix his car after he totaled it. No questions asked, no expectations, just brotherhood. I was always there, every time, every moment, every crisis. So why wasn't I good enough for one of the most important days of his life? The more I thought about it, the more the humiliation settled in. Not just humiliation, betrayal. A deep, cutting betrayal that didn't even feel real yet. Finally, after an hour of pacing, I texted him back. "Why doesn't she want me there?" His reply came faster than expected. "She thinks you caused drama." Drama? I actually laughed out loud, one of those hollow, bitter laughs that hurt more than they release. Drama? Me? If anything, I was the one who diffused conflicts in our family. I was the one who stayed calm, who kept peace, who avoided unnecessary fights. James, on the other hand, was always the one diving headfirst into problems, dragging me into them along the way. If his life were a fire, I was the extinguisher. Drama. The word felt like an insult, a lie, and a cheap excuse all at once. But the more I replayed our recent interactions, the more a darker thought crept in. I remembered the awkward silences the last time I visited them, The way she barely made eye contact with me. The way James acted strangely tense whenever she was around. The way conversations shifted abruptly whenever I entered the room. At the time, I brushed it off. People can be awkward, or shy, or tired. Now it felt intentional. So I asked him the only question that mattered. Do you not want me there? This time, the message didn't come quickly. Minutes passed, then 20, then nearly an hour. When the notification finally appeared, my heart dropped into my stomach before I even opened it. It's just better this way. No explanation, no responsibility, no brotherhood. Just a cowardly attempt to avoid directly saying what that sentence truly meant. I wasn't unwanted by just his wife. I was unwanted by him. And that realization hurt more than the wedding, the photos, the message, or anything else could. That's when I realized it wasn't just her. My brother didn't want me either. I should have stopped texting him. Any normal person would have. But when you've spent your entire life loving someone, protecting them, standing up for them, it's hard to suddenly switch off your instincts. Part of me still believed there had to be a misunderstanding, some missing piece I hadn't heard yet, some explanation that would make the hurt fade, even just a little. So I asked again, why is it better this way? His response came a minute later, as if he'd been waiting for the question. We're keeping it small. Small? I stared at the word until I felt my jaw clench. Small. A small wedding that apparently included 300 guests, which I wouldn't even learn until later. But at that moment, I clung to the word like it was a loose thread connected to the truth. I tugged on it, hoping something honest would unravel. Small? I just saw photos of your engagement party. There were tables full of people I've never even met. His reply was instant. Defensive, dismissive. This is different. We want a certain vibe. A certain vibe. I didn't know whether to laugh or break something. He followed it up with another message before I could respond. You won't fit in with her side of the family anyway. And there it was, another excuse. This one more painful than the last. I wouldn't fit in. Like I was some unwelcome stain on their perfect beige wedding aesthetic. I typed slowly, carefully, trying to keep my anger from spilling into every word. Fit in? I'm your brother. He left that message unanswered for so long I thought he'd blocked me. When the reply finally came, it felt like a slap thrown casually over his shoulder. It's her day. Just respect that. It's her day. Somehow, that excuse cut deeper than the others. Weddings aren't one-person events, they're about families coming together, about unity, about love expanding outward. I should have been standing next to him, adjusting his tie, calming his nerves, reminding him not to lock his knees during the ceremony. But instead, I was being told that the woman he was marrying had rewritten the rules of family, and he'd signed the contract without hesitation. As I stared at my phone, a buzzing notification from Messenger popped up. It was from my cousin, Lauren. Hey, are you coming to James's wedding? Just trying to see who I'll be sitting with. I blinked at the message. Stunned. I replied, I wasn't invited. The typing dots appeared almost immediately. What? But they invited everyone. Even Kevin from your brother's old job is going, and they haven't talked in years. They're saying it's like 300 people. 300. Not 20, not 30, not 50. 300 people. But not me. A deep, hot anger surged through me, anger so sharp it made my hands tremble. Not because my cousin told me something I didn't know, but because it exposed how easily my brother had lied to my face. Keeping it small. I wouldn't fit in. It's her day. All beautifully wrapped excuses, hiding the simple, ugly truth. And as the anger simmered, memories I'd buried long ago began resurfacing slowly at first. Then, all at once, I remembered how growing up, Mom would always say, James needs more attention. He's the sensitive one. So I learned to make myself smaller. I remembered how Dad would brag about James's grades. Even when I brought home straight A's, I was consistent. He was brilliant. I remembered how every time James wanted something, summer camp, new shoes, extra cash. The whole family scrambled to make it happen. When I needed something, it was always, "We'll see what we can do." I remembered how, when we both applied to college, James got tutoring, prep classes, and Dad's full support. I got a pat on the back and a reminder to be realistic. I was the backup child, reliable, steady, expected to manage on my own. James was the investment. So maybe I shouldn't have been surprised. Maybe being excluded from the wedding was just the final confirmation of a truth that had always existed beneath the surface, that in this family, love was conditional, unequal, lopsided. But knowing that didn't make the hurt any less sharp. It was later that night, when I was trying to convince myself to stop thinking about it, that my phone buzzed again. A message from an unknown number. I opened it without thinking. And when I read the words, my stomach twisted so hard it felt like the floor disappeared beneath me. She said, "You're bad luck." The moment I read those words, she said, "You're bad luck," something inside me shifted. Not because I believed it, but because it confirmed a suspicion I'd pushed down for years. Her dislike for me wasn't new. It wasn't sudden. It wasn't about wedding aesthetics or family dynamics. It had roots deep, tangled roots. I'd been too polite, too accommodating, too forgiving to acknowledge. My mind pulled me back to the first night I ever met her. It was a family dinner at a fancy restaurant, one of those places where cloth napkins feel too expensive to touch. I remember feeling out of place, not because of where we were, but because everyone else seemed to be performing. Fake laughs, exaggerated compliments. The kind of atmosphere where everyone pretended to be more polished, more successful, more impressive than they really were. She arrived dressed like she was attending a gala. My brother clung to her like she was oxygen. I was genuinely happy for him then. I thought she made him glow. But halfway through dinner, the conversation shifted to careers, and that's where things began to unravel. She asked what I did for work, and I told her nothing glamorous, nothing flashy. A steady job, one I was proud of because I'd built my life without handouts, without favoritism, without being the chosen child. She swirled her wine, gave a tiny laugh, and said, "Oh, so you're the charity case of the family." The table erupted into nervous chuckles, not because it was funny, but because no one wanted to challenge her. Not my parents, not my brother, not even my cousins. They all just laughed along. I remember staring at my plate, heat burning behind my eyes, swallowing humiliation like a bitter pill. I didn't want a scene. I didn't want to embarrass my brother. So I stayed silent. But silence can scar, and that was only the beginning. There were subtle jabs afterward. Every birthday, every holiday, every gathering where she was present. Comments about my clothes being too simple, remarks about how I lacked ambition. Questions like, "Are you still doing that job?" said in a tone dripping with fake concern. I tried to brush it off, telling myself she'd warm up eventually, telling myself she was just nervous, or awkward, or trying too hard to fit into the family. But now, looking back, I see the pattern clearly. She didn't want me around, not because of who I was, but because of how I reflected on them. Because I didn't fit the curated image she wanted to build. Because I didn't play along with the illusion of superiority she crafted so carefully. And my family, they enabled it. Every time they ignored her comments, laughed them off, redirected the conversation, they reinforced her belief that I was someone she could dismiss without consequence. Maybe that's why being excluded from the wedding hurt in a particular way. It wasn't just the rejection. It was the confirmation that my brother had chosen her narrative over my reality. It was the realization that she'd spent years trying to erase me, and now she'd succeeded. Still, I wanted clarity. I wanted truth, even if it burned. So I reached out to another relative, my aunt, someone who had always treated me with a softer kind of honesty. I asked her if she knew why I wasn't invited. She asked me to call. When I did, she hesitated before speaking, the kind of pause that tells you something is wrong, really wrong. She finally said, "I shouldn't be telling you this. but you deserve to know. My heart thudded in my chest. She inhaled sharply, then continued. Everyone thinks you refused to come. I froze. What are you talking about? I asked. But my voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. She sighed long, heavy, defeated. Your brother told the whole family you said you didn't want to be part of the wedding. And in that moment, something colder than betrayal washed over me. Because suddenly, I realized the worst part wasn't that the bride wanted me gone. It was that my own brother was rewriting the story to make me the villain. When my aunt told me my brother had been telling everyone I refused to attend his wedding, it felt like the room shifted sideways. I had expected pettiness from the bride. I had expected avoidance, maybe even cruelty. But hearing that my own brother painted me as the problem, as the jealous, dramatic sibling trying to ruin his big day, hit a place inside me I didn't know still existed. After hanging up, I started scrolling through family group chats, not the ones I was in, but the archived ones, the threads I'd muted long ago, because they always made me feel like an outsider. As I scanned the conversations, pieces of the puzzle I had ignored before suddenly fit together. Comments like, well, he's always been sensitive, and he never really likes social events, and let's not trigger him, leapt off the screen in a new, painful clarity. Trigger me, sensitive. When had I ever done anything to earn that label? Then another message caught my eye, one from a cousin I rarely spoke to. I heard he's jealous. She'd written, he always had issues with how successful you were. Jealous. That word burned. If only they knew the nights I'd spend helping him study, because our parents said he needed the push, the weekends I skipped plans so I could drive him to his part-time job when he didn't have a car. The time I worked extra hours to help him pay his last semester's tuition because he was too embarrassed to ask our parents for more money. Jealous. No, protective. Always. But the worst lie came from a message in the cousin's thread, the one where everyone pretended to be brutally honest. He's too unstable to be around the bride. She doesn't need his negativity. Unstable. I stared at the word for so long it stopped looking like English. When had my quietness turned into instability? When had boundaries become negativity? When had being excluded turned into my drama? And that's when the anger started to build, not fiery, not explosive, but slow and simmering, like something that had been waiting years for an excuse to wake up. Because, well, they painted me as unreliable, unstable, jealous, dramatic. All I could see were the sacrifices I'd made that no one else bothered remembering. I remembered being 19, working double shifts with aching feet, just so I could lend my brother money for his textbooks. He'd promised he would repay me, but he never did. I didn't mind then. I told myself that was what older brothers were for. I remembered the night he called me crying because he'd dented Dad's car and was terrified of the consequences. I took the blame. I said I did it. Dad yelled at me for an hour, grounded me even though I was already an adult. And my brother just stood there, silent, grateful but silent. I remembered the winter he got sick and didn't have health insurance yet. I paid for everything. The doctor visit, the medication, even the follow-up. He said he'd never forget what I did. Apparently, he had. Because now he was telling people I wasn't invited because I wouldn't fit in. That I would create tension, that I was known to cause scenes. Scenes. I had spent my entire life avoiding scenes. I had spent my entire life shrinking myself so others could shine without feeling threatened. I had spent my entire life being the dependable one, the steady one, the one who kept the peace. And somehow, in the rewriting of family history, I had become the problem. I needed answers, real ones, so I made the mistake of calling my parents. I hoped for a moment, just a heartbeat, that they would defend me, that they would say my brother misunderstood, or the bride exaggerated, or that they wanted me there, but the situation got messy. I hoped stupidly, desperately, that someone would finally choose me. But the moment my mother's voice came through the phone, the hope dissolved. She sounded rehearsed, too calm, too neutral. like she'd prepared a speech before picking up. "We think it's best if you sit this one out," she said, "for everyone's comfort." Comfort? My comfort had never been on their list of priorities, and she added with a sigh that felt like a slap, "We support their decision." Her words echoed in my ear long after the call ended, because that was the moment I understood something I'd avoided admitting my entire life. My family didn't just tolerate my absence. They preferred it. When I called my parents again the next morning, it wasn't because I expected them to suddenly understand. It was because some stubborn, wounded part of me still believed clarity might soothe the sting. Maybe there was a misunderstanding. Maybe they didn't realize how deeply this cut. Maybe they didn't know everything being said about me. But the moment my father answered, I realized the conversation would only make things worse. He didn't even say hello, just launched straight into, "If you're calling about the wedding again, don't. We've already discussed this." I tried to keep my voice steady, but it wavered. "Dad, I just want to understand. What exactly did I do? Why is everyone acting like I'm some threat?" There was a pause, but not the thoughtful kind, the irritated kind, the kind he used when I asked questions he didn't feel like answering. "You make everything difficult," he finally said. "You always have. This is supposed to be a happy time for your brother. Respect that. Respect that." As though I had asked for the wedding to revolve around me. As though I had caused a single one of the lies they were spreading. As though I had done anything except exist. "Difficult how?" I asked, my voice cracking despite my best effort. "By asking why I'm not wanted. By trying to clear up lies. By wanting the truth." "See?" he snapped. "There you go again. Always escalating. Always emotional. Always making everything about yourself." That sentence hit harder than anything my brother ever said. Because it wasn't new. I'd heard versions of it my whole life. "Stop overreacting. Don't be so sensitive. You're reading too much into it. Let it go. Why can't you be more like your brother?" All those old echoes rushed back at once, as though my father had opened the door to a room full of ghosts I had tried for years to shut out. I felt myself shrinking, the way I used to when I was a kid, being told my feelings were burdens, the way I used to swallow disappointment, hurt, anger, anything that might inconvenience someone else. "Dad," I whispered, "I'm not making anything about myself. I just don't understand why my own family." My mother cut in. She must have been on speaker. "Stop," she said sharply. "Just stop. This is exactly why we agreed with them. You turn everything into drama. You need to learn to let things go." A hollow feeling spread in my chest, like something collapsing inward. "So you're choosing them," I said quietly. Again, she sighed heavily, as if I was the one exhausting her. "We're choosing peace. That's all. Double quotes peace. Funny how peace always meant me being silent. I could have argued. I could have reminded them of everything I had done for my brother, everything I had sacrificed, every time I had stepped back so he could step forward. I could have defended myself against every lie. But something in me cracked at that moment. A small, fragile thing I had been holding together for years finally gave out. Instead of breaking down, I felt myself go still like a lake after a storm ends. "I understand," I said softly. My mother started to respond, but I didn't let her finish. I hung up. Then I put my phone down on my dresser and stared at it, breathing slowly, feeling the weight of a lifetime of trying to earn their love pressing on my chest. And for the first time, instead of trying harder, I felt something different. Exhaustion. Not the kind that sleep fixes. The kind that comes from years of begging for a place at a table where no one ever saved you a seat. I sat on the edge of my bed and let the truth sink in. I wasn't invited. I wasn't wanted. I wasn't worth honesty, let alone kindness. And no amount of reaching out, no amount of explaining, no amount of forgiving was going to change that. So I stopped replying to the group chats. I stopped answering calls. I stopped defending myself to people who had already decided who I was. I stopped trying to prove my worth to a family who only value my silence. In the quiet that followed, a strange sense of calm settled over me. Not peace. Peace requires safety, but clarity, and clarity is its own kind of power. I didn't know what I would do next. I had no plan, no grand declaration, no revenge in mind. All I knew was that I was done begging. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, I turned my phone on silent and tried to breathe again. That's when it rang. An unknown number flashed across the screen. I almost ignored it, thinking it was just another family member calling to scold me. But something made me pick up. Hello? I answered cautiously. Is this protagonist's name? A steady voice asked. I'm calling from the office of Grayson, Hill and Morrow. I'm your late aunt's attorney. We need to discuss something regarding her estate. I sat up straight, pulse kicking. My aunt, I repeated, stunned. Why would her lawyer be calling me? The voice paused before replying. There's something she left specifically for you. The lawyer's voice had the kind of calm authority that made everything he said feel heavier. I sat there clutching my phone, trying to process his words. My aunt, my quiet, observant, almost invisible, and had left something for me. No disclaimers, no shared distribution, no to be divided equally among the children. Just me. When can you come in? He asked. I cleared my throat, still stunned. Tomorrow, first thing. Good, he said. Bring an ID and prepare to spend a little time here. There's more than just a document. More? I barely slept that night. My mind kept cycling through memories of her. The way she always saved the last piece of pie for me at Thanksgiving. The way she squeezed my shoulder when she sensed I felt left out at family gatherings. The way she once whispered, "You see everything, don't you?" As if she understood exactly how deeply I observed, but never spoke. My aunt didn't talk much, but she listened. She noticed. She remembered. Walking into the law firm the next morning, I felt strangely nervous. The receptionist guided me to a conference room where the lawyer sat with a small wooden box and several folders neatly arranged on the table. He motioned for me to sit. Before we get into the legal details, your aunt left this, he said, sliding the wooden box toward me. She wanted you to read the letter first. Inside was an envelope with my name on it, my full name, written in her elegant cursive. My hand shook as I opened it. The letter wasn't long, but every word felt like she had poured her heart onto the page. She wrote about the first time she noticed how my parents compared me to my brother, how I tried so hard to make myself small to keep the peace, how I stayed quiet even when the silence harmed me, how she saw things the others ignored, my sacrifices, my loyalty, my heart. She wrote, "You were always the good one, but goodness in our family was treated like weakness. You deserved better than to spend your life begging for crumbs of affection." A lump formed in my throat as I continued. She explained that she had no children and no spouse left to inherit her estate. And somewhere along the years, she had quietly decided that if she ever left anything behind, it would go to the one person in the family who never asked her for anything. I want you to have a chance at a life that isn't anchored to people who can't see your worth. Then came the part that made me stop breathing for a second. She left me money, a lot of it, more than I had ever imagined she possessed. But that wasn't all. She left me part ownership of a property she had quietly inherited from her late business partner, a property that had recently been remodeled and leased out to a wedding venue my brother's wedding was being held at. I blinked at the page, stunned. Maya wrote, "I know this will matter one day. I suspect more than you realize." When I finally looked up, the lawyer was watching me kindly. "I'm assuming she explained the basics," he said, "but let me give you the full details." He opened a folder and laid out several documents. My aunt had left me a high six-figure sum and 20% ownership of the venue and ownership share that legally required the management company to consult me on certain types of events, bookings, and changes. I sat there speechless. My whole family had spent years treating me like the unwanted one, the unstable one, the embarrassment they needed to keep hidden. And now, suddenly, without asking for anything, without lifting a finger, I held something they would care about deeply, something they would never expect me to have. The lawyer leaned back slightly, gauging my reaction. I know this is a lot to take in, he said. But there's one more thing. I swallowed. More? He nodded, sliding a final document across the table. Given the timing of your aunt's passing, and the venue contract your brother's fiancé signed, this might be important. I scanned the paper. My heart thudded as I recognized the name of the wedding hall, the date, the contract number, and then, in bold print, co-owner approval required for venue modifications and extended use. The lawyer tapped the edge of the page lightly. You should understand something, he said with a calm, almost measured tone. You don't just benefit from this property. He paused, making sure I was listening. You actually own something your brother definitely doesn't know about yet that might interest him very, very much. You